So it's baking. Lots and lots of different baking techniques today. There are all sorts of different baking techniques for baking cakes. There is the creaming method, there is the melting method, there is the whisking method, there is the rubbing in method, most of which hopefully I'm going to be able to cover for you today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pineapple cake. This is a lovely simple fruit cake, but it can be quite pretty. You think pineapple cake, you think upside down pineapple cake with glacé cherries in. And people don't make them anymore and they're so good. So this is a variation on a theme. So I'm starting with a round cake tin, and I've got a tin of pineapple rings. I'm going to put one pineapple ring in the centre of the tin. Then I'm going to arrange some halves of pineapple around the edge of it so that when I turn the cake out, it looks pretty. It's going to look as if I've made a bit of an effort, but not too much of an effort. Because if it looks too perfect, then it's poor Hollywood or Waitrose. So just arrange it in a little circle around the base of the tin, so when you turn the cake out, it's got pretty bits on it. There's a little bit of pineapple left over, which is fair game for the washing up fairy. So now I'm going to cream together my cake. The key to making a really successful cake with your Aga is to get the butter out of the fridge before you start. Get it really soft. You can melt it completely if you like. It doesn't make any difference to the cake. Because if your butter is solid, it's going to be really hard to mix in. So you get the butter really, really soft. And then you cream together the butter and sugar until they're light and fluffy. You then add beaten eggs, a teaspoon at a time. You then fold in sifted flour. And into my flour I put a little bit of ground allspice, which is the most wonderful spice. It's not mixed spice, it's a single spice. They're called allspice berries, and they're like big black peppercorns. And you can grind it yourself in a mill, or you can buy it ready ground. And if anybody wants a sniff, there it is. It's the most lovely spice. I put it in all sorts of things because it's a little bit unusual. Nobody's quite sure what you've done. It's always quite nice if nobody's quite sure what you've done. So having creamed and sifted and beaten, you just mix it all together. As long as the butter's really soft, that's all there is to it. And then I've got some glacé pineapple that goes in nice big lumps. So it's super duper extra pineapple-y, this cake. Put in some mixed peel if you fancy it. Whatever you've got hanging around can go in. And that piles into the cake tin and it's ready to bake. If you can possibly manage to get your butter out of the fridge 20 minutes before you start baking, your cake will be so easy to make because the butter will be soft. And baking really doesn't have to be hard. So there it is, in the cake tin, ready to bake. If you have a baking oven, it goes in your baking oven. Easy as anything. If you have a 2-oven Aga, you don't have a baking oven, you have the super hot roasting oven, the half temperature simmering oven. The way I bake any cake in a 2-oven Aga is to get my roasting tin. Hopefully everybody's got a roasting tin. And what I do is put the cake tin into the roasting tin. And then put that into the roasting oven as low down as I can get it. In the ovens, there are 4 sets of runners down the side upon which all the tins and the trays sit. All the Aga tins are designed to slide straight into the oven. And by putting the cake in its roasting tin, the deep sides of the roasting tin are going to shield the heat coming from the sides of the oven. The base is going to shield the heat coming from the base of the oven. Then I'm going to slide the cold plain shelf in above, giving it a little bit of a gap. And if you've got a 2-oven Aga, you've now got a baking oven, shielding the heat coming from all sides. It absolutely works perfectly with any cake, and you can get 2 8-inch cake tins in your big roasting tin. So that goes into the roasting oven of the 2 oven Aga, raised up from the floor, but as low down as I can get it in the oven. And then you take your cold plain shelf, which hopefully everybody has got one. Quite often you move into a house and you can't find it, and it's on the floor of the oven, or it's against the roof of the oven, or it's in the garage with tins of paint on it. And that goes into the oven 2 runners above the top of your cake. You are creating an oven within an oven. A cold plain shelf is absolutely essential to bake a cake in the 2 oven Aga. Because the cold plain shelf, it acts in 3 ways. First, it's just a slab of metal. It absorbs heat, therefore it sucks the heat out of the oven, reducing the temperature in the oven. Second, by sliding it into the middle of the oven, you're effectively cutting the oven in 2. The oven is designed for the heat to flow freely around it. If you slide the plain shelf into the middle of the oven, hot air rises, you're trapping the heat above it. And therefore, beneath it, by definition, it will be cooler. And the third way it acts is because it's above the top of the cake, it's shielding the heat from the intensely hot roof of the oven from browning the cake too much. The cold plain shelf works to reduce the temperature in the oven. The roasting tin works like a cold plain shelf all the way around the outside of the cake, shielding the heat coming from all sides. Because I do hate to contradict the book, but in a lot of Aga recipe books, when you're baking a cake, the instructions are, take your oven shelf and put it on the floor of the roasting oven, put the cake tin on it, slide the plain shelf above. Forgetting that if you're doing a Victoria sandwich, you've got 2 8-inch tins side by side, sort of at an oblique. And the edge of the tin closest to the edge of the oven is sitting close to a heat source, and it gets a little bit crunchy. And you have to think about it halfway through cooking them and move them round. Whereas if you just chuck them in the roasting tin and bung it in the oven, they don't get crunchy edges. The roasting tin reduces the temperature in the oven for about half an hour. The combination of the roasting tin and the plain shelf reduce the temperature for about half an hour. After about half an hour, you take your cake out of the oven and you admire it. The top is risen and set. It's quite brown enough, but it's still gooey in the middle. At that stage, you take the whole roasting tin out of your roasting oven and put it into the simmering oven below. And by using the roasting tin as effectively as a bucket to put the cake in the oven below, you're using the hot roasting tin to raise the temperature in the simmering oven. So you don't get thermal shock making your cake sink. Don't forget to take the plain shelf out of the roasting oven. That's baking a cake in a 2 oven Aga, and now we can all go home. Is everybody happy with that? If you have a 4 oven Aga, ignore everything I've said, chuck it in the baking oven, let it get on with it. So that's the pineapple cake. I'm going to bake it in the 2 oven way because it seems so mean not to. Is everybody happy? Sure?